Right now, um, we as Americans are not getting along. We do not see things eye to eye. Um, this is not a new problem, actually. It's just that it's reaching a boiling point, and you can see it really clearly on Facebook. Um, as everybody is hurling epithets at each other and deleting each other, and I'm watching different news uh, sources and hearing different people pontificate like I'm doing, on YouTube as well. And we're hearing a lot of different voices. Um, and it's hard for me. I mean, I used to be much more active in being an activist in the past, and now I just instead of being in the struggle, I'm just struggling. And now years later, many of my students are police officers. They're soldiers. They're your average working folk. Many have started families, and many are African American. They're gay, transgender, Latino. Basically, everyone that's in America has been in my classroom. Okay, and so when I see vicious attacks going on everywhere, when I see black men getting killed, when I see cops being killed, I see my students somewhere out there, and it makes me sad. It it's frustrating, and I see, you know, it's not hard for me to see a lot of different perspectives on this topic. I have family members who have been in law enforcement, and my daughter is part black and Asian, and I've been in several different communities, and I do feel like I kind of get a lot of various things that people are saying. Having said that, we do have to draw lines in the sand. Sometimes we have to make a position, but can't we do that with an understanding of why this debates, why these debates are happening in the first place? Um, you know, I like the saying for stupid or silly in Icelandic, which comes from Old Norse. I'm not sure I'm saying it right. I tried to take a Swedish, and I did terrible with Swedish, I have to admit. Um, but it's heimsker, and it means literally from home. I like this term better than just saying someone's stupid, because stupid is simply an insult the way it sounds in English. Heimsker is an explanation. You're from home. You have a limited perspective. That's what it means, right? That's what you're saying. That you, if you're just living in your own home and you haven't seen the world outside of your home, obviously you don't know a lot about the world, right? And so, no matter how intelligent you haven't had the experience to be able to see things outside of your own limited set of experiences. The more you get out, the more you understand, the less stupid you are because you're not from home anymore. You have various sets of understandings about the variables that take place within human existence. And so I'd like to encourage us to stop being from home, to get out, to make our minds kind of work a little bit harder and stretch out. Uh, uh, Stretch out, whatever. I don't even know how to articulate myself these days. It's ridiculous. Everything that's going on is nuts. Now, look, I want to just say, since we're talking about perspectives, for myself, I think that and why I'm mentioning this idea about from home is that in a sense, it makes sense that we are informed by our experiences, okay? Um, and that that our experiences leave impressions on us that make us think that reality operates in a certain way when we don't realize that it's not universally applicable. See, that's what we're really talking about. So, for example, when I was in kindergarten, I got jumped almost every day by gangs of kids. I lived in kind of a rougher, lower class neighborhood, and I told my teacher, "Hey, I'm getting jumped by these guys," and They throw me against the wall, and then they throw me into the sandbox. Like, it's the ritual I go through. She told me, stop being a tattletale, fight back. Yeah, right. What? That was a response. So, someone in a position of authority, regardless of how good of a teacher she was or how great of an experience other students may have had with her, I will always remember her as the teacher who abandoned me to the bullies on the schoolyard. And, you know, these bullies that attacked me were white. I grew up in a predominantly white area, in a time in Modesto where it was still more segregated, you know, racially and ethnically. And I got beat up a lot. I fought a lot in elementary. My worst, most violent years of my life were in elementary. And even though I even learned how to fight, I never had intimidation. So I could never stop it by a threat. I could never just mad dog. Hey, you want to fuck with me? You want to fuck with me? No, I didn't know how to do that. So I just like the guy get in my face, and then I gotta do this again, and I beat him up, boom, and then the next day it's like the same thing. It doesn't end, and it was terrible. And that's my mom, okay, and it gave me a lot of stress as a child. Now, had I not had other teachers that actually didn't react that way and actually have good teachers, she would have left a very negative impression of teachers to me. And I was also thinking, had I not been facing white on white crime, I mean, it was my white brothers that were, you know, beating the shit out of me. If it was me as a white guy in a predominantly black neighborhood or Mexican or some other ethnic group, and if they were saying white boy as they were beating me down, which this happens to some white guys, maybe as I got to be older, I would have gravitated towards, you know, some neo-Nazi group. I would have maybe had that experience made a shaped my mind in a certain way, right? Look, Malcolm X, he faced a lot of racism growing up as a young man, and he was in a poor area. He got into crime, and he gets out of crime, and he gets into black nationalism, and then he thought very little of whites, and then he explored more into his own spirituality, and he traveled the world, and then he saw that other people that didn't look like him shared his own view of spirituality of of the world, and that changed his perspective. He didn't stay from home. He broke out and he saw different perspectives, and he always was drawing lines in the sand. He stood up for himself, for his people. He never lost touch with himself as a black man, but his idea of himself as a black man and his relationship with the rest of the world and with other ethnicities changed as he grew and developed into the man he was. And we don't know where he would have went if he lived longer and wasn't assassinated. But our experiences can change us, but they can also lock us in at times into this perspective that seems justifiable because we've been experiencing it maybe even for a long period of time, not knowing that this isn't how it works for everybody else in the world. You get it? Okay? I hope that's clear what I'm saying. Now, I want to say in regards to police, when I was a child, most of my experience with police were great, if not 100%. If not 100%. And my cousin, he retired in the highway patrol. He's a very good man. He found out that I was being bullied, and at a family get-together, he tried to help give me some self-defense tips to protect myself. My mom stopped it because she's a pacifist Christian and didn't want to encourage me to learn anything violent. That's a whole other topic. But my point is, I saw those in law enforcement kind of like what my cousin was doing to me, saying, hey, we're here to help you, and so that was positive. Now, a few years later, I decided to have a style change. I grew my hair very long. I had a big beard. I didn't look tough, but I didn't look desirable. If you look at me now, especially if I have a button-up shirt, I look more like a Mr. Rogers type character. Certainly not a menace to society if you're just going to profile me, right? But I was in my own neighborhood walking early in the morning, long hair, beard, maybe even a beret. My ex-wife and child was asleep at the house, and I see a squad car from behind me creeping up. And lo and behold, they, just like I felt, they were creeping in on me, and the siren went off. Ooh! And Hare's voice, raise your hands in the air. I'm like, whoa, bro, this is crazy. This never happened to me before. And as the squad car pulls up, his windows down, he says, you look suspicious. What are you doing? And I felt so, I was like, I wanted to say sorry, but I knew that would sound sarcastic. So I didn't say sorry. I just didn't really know what to say. He said, I look suspicious. And I didn't know what to say. I said, well, I'm just walking, officer. I can't even remember what I said. It was just like, I didn't know how to respond to that. And they said, why are you walking so close to the windows of the cars? Well, we had no sidewalks in that neighborhood. And there was just cars in the street, or I could have walked down the middle of the street. So I was walking closer to the cars because I didn't want to walk down the middle of the street where the cars are driving. So I get it. It looks like I was like looking in the cars maybe to steal or, whatever. And so I tried to explain that, but in any case, they come out of the car. My hands are still up in the air, and then they say to me, show us your ID. My hands up in the air. Now, I'm thinking now about this video that I just saw, this terrible video, where the young gentleman with his daughter in the car, this black man, daughter in the car, his girlfriend, and the police officer asked him to show his ID, but the police officer thought that he was getting a weapon and shot and killed him. You've seen this video, right? It's terrible. This is what I feared. When I had my hands in the air, I said, my God, these guys think that I'm a bad guy. They think that I'm potentially a dangerous person. If I have a weapon, this is my only chance as I go grab. Think about this. I'm shady. If I got a gun in my pocket and these two guys are behind me, right? And that seems like kind of a crazy request too. I'm going to put my hands in my pockets and pull something out. I thought, God, so I'm trying to just slowly stick my butt out, like gently, to make sure they realize it, because I could feel them potentially tasing me or clubbing me or shooting me if they did, for whatever reason, my wallet looked a little too wallet-like. And then they proceeded to interrogate me in the most insulting manner. He said, how much money do you make? And I said, well, I was confused why he asked me that. So I told him, and he said, the police officer said, it's pretty hard to support a family on that, don't you think? And then I was like, oh, well, fuck, man. Yes, it is. It's very... And then I said, well, I'm going to school too. And he said, you're a little old to be in school, don't you think? And I don't know if he realizes that, I might have been talking about college, but I don't know what. It was just like they were aggressive and mean. I had to go sit in the gutter, on the curb. And then they just they did their background check on me, gave me my ID, and they scurried off. 2 days later, I phone called the police department, and I said, officer, on the phone, very respectfully still, I said, I don't have a problem that I was being profiled or that the police checked on me. I live in this neighborhood. There is crime going on, and people are doing things there. But the way that they treated me and how they talked to me was unacceptable, and it really was humiliating, and I didn't like it. And the police officer's response to me was basically, well, he said, you don't know how it's like to be us, what we deal with on the streets. And basically, you know what? He kind of came off like tough cookies, wah, 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 cry me a river. And there was no apology or like, hey, I'm sorry. He didn't say, oh, I'm sorry you felt that way. You got to realize. He didn't even try. He just blew me off. And I thought, man, they just taught me something. Once you're assumed, once you're profiled, and you look like they think you're a criminal, maybe this is then they just treat you like one. I don't know. Fortunately, that's not always been my experience with police officers, but my God, if that's how I was treated my whole life, fuck, man, I might have a pretty angry view about everything, right? Because I might just feel like I did as a kindergartner, abandoned on the playground to bullies and to negligent authority figures. I'm and not, like, how would I even feel a part of this society to experience that kind of thing? And I had a police officer that I really liked that came to my coffee shop. He retired. He was actually a black man that retired from the San Francisco Police Department. He's long past me. He rests in peace. And he told me that one time he went to a police party in the Bay Area, and him and his partner were there, and he had some Kool-Aid, and then he started having all these problems, and he didn't realize there was LSD in there. This was a police party where they took all the drugs that they confiscated from from raids, and they were sharing them. And he didn't realize that. He didn't get the memo on that. And him and his partner left kind of like they had to pull over. He said because they were tripping. And then I said, well, why didn't you? I kind of tried to politely say, why didn't you say anything? In other words, why didn't you out these guys? And he kind of almost wanted to avoid the topic, and it really came down to snitches get stitches. It's like the laws of the street that corrupt police officers kind of hide behind the safety of the brotherhood of the badge. Now, I'm not demonizing all police officers right now. I'm making a point. Look, as a teacher, in education, there was a principal, I think it was in the Bay Area, who got arrested, and they found out that he was running like a prostitution ring, and he was simultaneously a principal of a school. Oh my God, are you serious? I remember that. What the fuck? Look, sometimes people in authority that are with us, that are supposed to be one of us doing right things, don't do right things, okay? You have to keep that in mind, and they got to be called out. And if we don't call them out for what they're doing because they're a part of our profession, we're undermining our profession, right? So I just want to say that, okay? Now look, there's two things that we have to face of reality in this country. That we have a lot of violence in our society that police are called to go into, and we have a lot of racism. And I think it's silly for anybody to debate that those two things aren't going on. And those things are what's informing the parties involved into how they analyze the situation often. But here's what it comes down to. In every society, I just want to say, where there's lower income, there's more violence. Like me, I grew up white on white crime. Okay? If you have a ghetto, you have crime because it's a ghetto, not because there's black people there. It's because it's the hood. It is the hard place to live. Like I said, you go anywhere. Scotland was the murder capital of Europe for a long time. Might still be in that range. Why? Poverty and this culture of violence that's there. White on white crime as well. Okay? These kind of problems have to be addressed through society. Just sticking law enforcement in to try to fix that is just going to escalate it. You've got to address the whole issue of crime. And simultaneously, if you have a history of racism, it's going to permeate through all sectors of society. And the people that come to power that are in positions of authority are often going to come from that kind of culture as well. There's so many different things that we can address in this. Now look, I don't want to keep going on. I've already spent 19 minutes talking, and it's a little bit too long. I just want to say this. Majority of my friends and people who are active in the Black Lives Matter movement aren't saying all lives don't matter. They're not saying blue lives don't matter. Maybe what the slogan should have said, Black lives also matter. Because that's what they're trying to say. Political slogans are kind of a a tricky thing, right? Because you're trying to make a statement for a reason about something and hoping that it translates into what you're trying to get across to other people. Look, I stood against the sanctions against Iraq before 9/11 that was killing the children. That's a whole other topic, okay? And I remember having a sign saying end the sanctions against Iraq because I thought that the regime was being targeted, except that it was the civilian population that were being punished. So I was against it. Someone in the car drives by and they say, fuck Saddam Hussein. And I felt like saying, fuck yeah! I don't like Saddam Hussein. But in their minds, me putting end the sanctions against Iraq, in their mind meant fuck America and pro Saddam Hussein. And they completely misunderstood. This is just the problem of sloganing, and we can't get around it, okay? Black Lives Matter, as a general rule, is saying we as black people we don't feel like white America cares that our lives matter, and we want to say that it does because of what we're seeing with this. Now, whether or not you think that police are being fairly treated in this or not, or whatever the case you think, we should realize that we're all experiencing America in different ways. Okay? To be born into this society, you know, if you're born a woman, you experience life differently than a man. All my lady friends are fearful of being raped and killed. Are you guys afraid of being raped and killed as we walk the streets at night? Most are not. Almost every girl is. They experience America different than we do. Or the world even, maybe, right? Okay? I saw police officers taking a black man from the Black Lives Matter movement on Fox News, trying to show him what it's like to be a police officer. But are police officers also trying to see what it's like to be a black man on the street? Maybe some are. Here's my whole point. We can't be from home because we live in a multicultural society. And if you don't think we should be in a multicultural society, then you could leave because, look, white America is the one that forced us to have a black America. The slaves didn't come here by choice. This was forced immigration. The irony now is that we're worried about illegal immigrants coming here that we don't want. We have white America who brought a whole entire group of people from another continent that didn't even want to be here. We said we didn't like them in the first place and then still brought them here. And we said we're only going to like them here if they do what we want, which is to be slaves. And if they're not going to be slaves, then we don't want them here at all. And that's the kind of culture that we created. That's just a fact, okay? And we haven't quite got over all of these mentalities of things. And at the same time, unless you're an anarchist, you do want to have people with guns and clubs to protect us from people who want to kill and rape your family members. Okay? So how are we going to resolve all of this shit? Well, we got to fucking, we got to make a stand on things. But, we within our communities need to make it better. And I want to say this. The police that say that they're good and they feel like they're being targeted, they have to stand up and outwardly condemn those in their ranks who are abusing their authority. Okay? And we should call each other on the streets when we see each other doing abusive things. Okay? And I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're all responsible for how we act in life. And at the end of the day, here's the struggle. We're going to have to hit the streets at times to make a statement. And there are going to be lines that are drawn in the sand. And at times, we are not going to understand each other. And unfortunately, there will be a call to action at times. Hopefully, we can always, though, keep in mind the perspective of the other, maintain our humanity, and, help create a better country together. On 4th of July, we celebrated violence against authority because authority didn't feel legitimate to the population here. Think about that. I don't advocate that. I condemn acts of violence against citizens, to the state, from the state, to any of these kind of acts of violence. I don't support that. But think about this. July 4th we just celebrated was a celebration of violence against authority because the colonists didn't feel that there was legitimate governance by the authorities anymore. So the British thought that they were governing fine. They thought that we were ungrateful. There was a communication problem, and it led to a violent civil war, which led to us getting independent. Now, I think we were right to get that independence, but it should have never got to that point, right? We don't want a violent revolution here, right? We don't want a race war here. So we need to actually try to pull back and say, look, maybe it doesn't even matter if the people have a different point of view than us are right or not. But we need to create a situation somehow in which people don't feel the need to be angry. Look, we all want to just have barbecues, hang out with our families. We want to be with our, significant others, and we want to get some love. I want to have, a lovely lady, some food, my daughter healthy, good music on. That's what I like, right? Okay, that's what we want. We don't want to hit the streets. We don't want to go riot. We do that when we feel that we have to. And, police officers want to feel safe in the street. They want people to not be hostile to them. They'd like to not, right? So let's all start doing the right things and working for a better way, okay? I've already spoke for too long. The point is, well, I think I made my points. And I just wanted to make my points. Be good to each other.